Lake Tahoe is challenged with keeping the water blue, even when constantly testing for both water quality and clarity. Now, I visited the iconic crystal clear water of Tahoe to see why a warming climate is the biggest challenge to keeping Tahoe blue.
We really rely on the science to figure out what is happening in the lake.
Laura Patton is the Natural Resource Director at the League to Save Lake Tahoe, better known as Keep Tahoe Blue. Patton and other scientists say climate change and recreation are the lake's biggest threats.
We are seeing different impacts from things like air temperature, water temperature, precipitation patterns.
Lake Tahoe is world-renowned for its blue coloring, and there's bumper stickers all over the region that says to keep it that way. But climate change poses a myriad of threats to the lake, so we're asking the question, could Tahoe turn green?
Tahoe's crystal blue water is actually clear. The clear water reflects the blue sky and absorbs red light, making these brilliant hues of blue.
Climate change is absolutely the largest threat to Lake Tahoe's water quality.
She's referring to longer and hotter periods of heat, longer fire seasons, and more erratic storms.
When we think about Lake Tahoe's water quality and the threats that are impacting the water quality today, there are a number of them, and they're interactive. And so we're adding species to the lake unintentionally and often illegally, and those species can reorganize how nutrients are given to algae that grow at the edge of the lake.
Dr. Sudeep Chandra is the director of the University of Nevada's Global Water Center, researching freshwater lakes from Southeast Asia to the Eastern Sierra. Algae most often forms in warm and relatively calm waters. Excess nutrients like nitrogen and phosphorus enter the lake via agricultural or stormwater runoff and can act as fertilizer for algae and bacteria growth. Not all algae is toxic though, but when it is, it can be extremely harmful to the ecosystem. Caution signs even line Tahoe's shores when toxic algae overgrowth, known as harmful algal blooms, is detected. Scientists say when a harmful algal bloom happens, options to fight it can be limited. It's more beneficial to stop blooms before they happen.
One thing that we really focus on is actually the prevention of the spread of aquatic invasive plant species. Aquatic invasive plant species make their way primarily through boats. They can also make their way into Tahoe through something like a paddleboard or a kayak. So we really encourage everybody to clean, drain, and dry.
Boat inspections have been mandatory at the lake since 2008, and permanent inspection stations are being placed on both the California and Nevada sides of Tahoe to help keep invasive species out. In 2021, when the Wildfire raced towards South Lake Tahoe, Dr. Chandra says its smoke impacts were not really what you might expect.
Not all smoke is created equal. When you have fires, the Wildfire, that heavy smoke and ash that's deposited closer to the fire turns out to be less reactive, and it doesn't grow as much algae. But the fine, thin particles further away from the fire that maybe make the beautiful sunsets that we see, they actually have a lot of nutrients and metals that can stimulate algae growth.
Wildfire smoke can also impact Lake Tahoe's water quality. Patton adds that the Truckee River, which carries sediment and other particle pollution into Lake Tahoe, also impacts the water quality.
The upper Truckee River is the largest contributor to fine sediment pollution into Lake Tahoe. We're really focused on restoring marshes and meadows so that those can act as big filters. So the more restoration that we can do in Lake Tahoe, the more we can protect it and keep Tahoe blue.
And the federal government is helping. Congress just reauthorized the Lake Tahoe Restoration Act, extending funding of about $300 million to protect Tahoe's water quality. Since 1997, hundreds of federal projects have restored wetlands, reduced forest fire fuels, and helped control invasive species. But still, more can be done.
I'm worried as a conservation scientist that unless we make some of these subtle changes, that in 10 or 20 years, our kids won't have the ability to change things back. And there are little things that we can do that would protect the lake in big ways into the future.
Tomorrow, the ABC 10 Weather Impact Team travels to Lake Elsinore, Southern California's largest freshwater lake. It's being brought back to life and could serve as a roadmap for survival.